All right, can you all hear me? Yes, excellent. So that little device over there has kind of stepped on what I was going to say, but I'm going to do it anyway. Welcome, everyone. This is our first Chap event of the year. I want you to be on the lookout in the spring for additional events. We have one planned right away, and then we have some others kind of in the works. So look for those. My name is Jim Entz. I'm a professor of art here at Porterville College and also the coordinator of the Cultural and Historical Awareness Program, what we call Chap here. Just a moment just to let you know, if you don't already, I think many of you do, what this program is about. It was organized in 2002, so this is our 20th year, even though there's been a hiatus during COVID. So this event has been an ongoing, I think of it as a cultural institution on this campus. It's been really, I think, significant. Its goal is to enhance awareness on the campus and in the community for important aspects of our culture to which we may previously have had little or no exposure, such as Japanese internment camps like Manzanar, one of the first events that occurred in 2002. This year, or each year, members of Chap or those who are involved, that's faculty, staff, community members, really any willing victims who want to be involved in the planning and so on of this, usually choose a theme. And this year we've just done this kind of overriding 20th year anniversary theme, but we're going to hone that and get more specific in the spring. That theme is something that faculty then are encouraged to integrate into their courses and encourage student participation at the events. And these events are all kinds. I mean, we have a panel here today of veterans in honor of Veterans Day, but these events are also, single guest speakers and exhibits and concerts and other sorts of things of that kind. And they are all free and open to the public. So the community is encouraged as well as anyone on campus. Well, how to get involved? It's as simple as coming to these events and presentations. And it can also be, you might have an idea for a speaker, someone that you think would be great to have come up to this podium and speak to the rest of us here at this event. You might be interested in planning and decision making in Chap. And if that's the case, let me know. You can get a hold of me at Chap. So the email is chap, C-H-A-P, at portervillecollege.edu. Or my own personal email you can find through as jentz at portervillecollege.edu. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our moderator, Marilyn Pankey. So there is further ado for a moment. I just realized. I'm so sorry. So she's up, she's down. She's okay. My fault. There will be time for you to ask questions of the veterans at the end of the event. So and I'll have a mic here, so I'll come around and so that you can be heard. And also, if you are here as a student and you want extra credit, we have extra credit cards that will be at the door. She will be handing those out, one per person. And so those are evidence that you've been here at the event. And finally, let's silence our cell phones. If you haven't already, please airplane mode or silence them. We could take them out. I don't have mine with me, so I'm trying to follow my example, my fake phone. So anyway, that would be helpful. Thank you so much. All right, now, without further ado, this is Marilyn Pankey, our moderator.
Happy to see all of you. And I have to admit, I was around during World War II, but I don't have the intimate knowledge that our gentlemen on the stage have of the particular war they were involved with. And I'm going to let each one of them introduce himself and tell a little bit about his experience in the military. So let's begin with you, Nick.
Hi, my name is Nicholas Oliva, and I joined the Army in 1999. At first, everything was good. And then after September 11th, I didn't really realize what patriotism was about, or serving my country, until in 2003 I was on a C-130 and it started doing a combat landing in Baghdad International Airport. Is, I guess, where I really woke up and said, hey, this is for reals. All the training that up to that point, I just, it didn't kick in until then. And then once we got into Baghdad, I saw things that you all probably saw in movies, and it got real fast. And when I finally got to my base, I was stationed in Taji, Iraq, approximately 45 minutes north of Baghdad. It's a whole different world, and it's I don't know how to explain it. It's real. You're so trying to survive out there, and at the time I thought, all right, well, we're doing a good thing out here, but that war lasted a very long time.
Thank you, Nick. I think we'll move along, and then I'll be back and asking you questions about your experiences. Roland.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Roland Hill, a Porterville College, proud Porterville College graduate. And it was one of the days that I was out here back in 1968 that my life changed. I was a student here, and to save Professor Osborne the agony of hearing the story again, I dropped the class, and I shouldn't have, because it dropped me down below 12 units. I lost my school deferment, and back in those days, that was a pretty important thing, because there was the draft going on. And so I got drafted, got my draft notice, and in a mad dash went to all the recruiting offices and said I want to join, because draftees had a reputation of ending up as grunts in Vietnam. And all of the services, except for the Marines, and Everett, I will say, they were looking for a few good ones, and I wasn't one of them. I didn't want to be one of them. So anyway, I ended up getting drafted, and then in 1969, on April Fool's Day, I ended up in country in Vietnam. Spent a tour there. I flew around in helicopters. I was a helicopter crew chief, mechanic, and in the air, you're just a door gunner. So that's what I did for a year. Ended up, upon discharge, I came back to Porterville College and finished up, got my AA, and went on from there. That's my story.
Okay. Thank you. Nick. Cody.
Hey everybody, you all probably see me around campus. I'm the big hillbilly with long hair walking around. I joined the United States Coast Guard in 2011, served for 6 years. I also too was a Porterville College graduate, but prior to me joining, I was a Porterville College failure. Failed pretty much all my classes. I had an on-call job. I lost my father, and the only job I could find 2 weeks later was picking up dead people. So I did that for a couple of years, and I realized I wanted more for my life, and I wanted to help out the world a little bit and make a difference in people's lives. So I decided to go for the United States Coast Guard. I wanted to actually try to save some lives. I didn't want to go to a war-going branch and be forced to take any, so I decided to do the Coast Guard to try to make a difference. And had 6 years in there, and I loved every second of it, and I cherish it to this day.
Great.
Well, I got drafted just like Roland, about a year later than Roland got drafted. And
You speak a little louder,
okay,
or turn your microphone on, maybe.
Oh,
It is
on, it just doesn't have a light.
Okay.
okay, all right. Then got drafted, went to the Army, went through about almost a year worth of training before I went to Vietnam. I went to Vietnam and got wounded after just less than 2 months being there, got wounded and ended up in Japan for about a month, and then 3 months at Walter Reed Hospital in Washington, D.C. The point was, though, when I got to Vietnam, it was a complete game changer. It's not, you know, a whole different life. And you go from one thing to another, like going in a combat zone, it's completely different. I was 11 Bravo, so I was on the ground, and it was a difficult situation most of the time. And of the time I was there, I only had one night that I didn't live in the field. That was the only time I came back to any type of secure location, was one night in the time I was there. So that's the story. It changed my life, but it also made me very cognizant of the fact of how great we are here in the United States. You mentioned the world. We used to say going back to the world was the most important thing, because the world is here. When you go to a combat zone, that's not the world. That's not the world we know.
Okay, Everett.
Yes, my name is Everett Morgan. I'm also a graduate of Porterville College. I was drafted in the Army in 1966, and I went down and did something sensible and joined the Marine Corps.
How did that work out? Never mind.
It didn't work out too good down the road, but it was something I always knew if I was going to do service in the military, that I would be a Marine. And anyway, I went to Vietnam in 1966 and 67. I spent 8.5 months in constant combat. Like Greg, he was so much time. I was wounded the third day in. The third day. That's a whole new wake up. And you decide right then, man, what did I get myself into here? Then you look around and you think, why? What for? And all that good stuff. But I spent 8.5 months. I ended up being wounded 3 times. They run me out of the country because I had too many Purple Hearts. And it was a presidential order at that time, if you had so many Purple Hearts and you spent so much time in a hospital or whatever. Well, when I got the third one, they had 72 hours to get me out of the country. So they literally come out and got me and threw me out of Vietnam. But while I was there, like Greg, I remember spending one night where I got to sleep in a cot. And I was telling the guys at breakfast this morning, I can remember eating in a mess hall one meal in 8.5 months. So that's how busy I was.
Thank you, Everett. I heard a couple of you mention the word draft. Can you discuss the difference between draft and voluntary Army?
Well, I'll try to. Here we go. So I believe it's still the case. Every young person now, it's probably male and female, back then it was just the guys. Once you reach 18, you had to sign up, you had to enroll in the selective service system, and that was the draft. And there were certain exemptions that you could, there was a 4F if you were medically not qualified. Back in the early days, they had, if you were married, had children, you could get an exemption. And the big one was the student, the education exemption. And so if you stayed in college, stayed in school, you could keep that exemption active for as long as you were in college. And bear in mind, this is not something that you take lightly. To get drafted, you didn't have any choice. I take it back. There was one choice, Canada. You could run to Canada. That was a fairly drastic one because you absolutely gave up your citizenship to the United States at that time.
Were you drafted into a particular branch?
Yes, the Army. The Army was the main drafting service. The Marines did do some drafting during like 65, I think.
66.
Okay, yeah.
They were still doing some drafting into the Marines in '69, because out of the group that I went in with, they took the first 6 and just marched them off to the Marines. The rest went to the Army. And I remember the letter, it's greetings.
Greetings from the President of the United States.
President of the United States.
Yeah. I was in the first platoon 1001 and MCRD, that had a drafted Marine. That's the first Marines came in for training. I wouldn't want to have been one of those. They was not treated very nice, because they was drafted. But we went to Oakland to be sworn in, so all these guys was going into the Army. So they told them count off 1 to 4. Well, the 4s was Marines, and they all just about passed out right there on the floor.
Thank you. I'll ask all of you this question, and you can pop in anytime you wish. When you were deployed, did you know where you were geographically? Had you ever heard of that place before? You mentioned that you were in a place that you didn't know exactly where you were.
Well, I've never been to that side of the world before, so if anybody's been in a third world country, it's totally different. You're in a different place.
And of course, in 1968, everybody knew where Vietnam was. We'd been having a steady diet of it on every news agency and television for years. But no, I had never, you heard of Saigon, you heard of Hanoi, but Fuloy, never heard of Fuloy, but that's where I ended up.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, you go someplace that you have heard about, generally, Vietnam, but then you get there, and it's still a kind of a shock to you. I arrived a little after midnight, and it was like 100 and some degrees still, and really humid outside. Completely black, and they send you right off to an airfield. I remember for a night pickup. So you waited for the helicopter to come in and pick you up and take you out to the remote areas that you're going to be at, where you're going to be assigned. And it's orchestrated pretty well, but you have no idea where you're really going to end up until you're deployed, completely deployed all the way out.
Let me ask all of you too, were you able to communicate with your family or friends back home? How did you do that?
You wrote letters.
That's right.
Yeah, us old guys, we didn't have the cell phones to call home.
I've heard of things like Skype.
Now,
Now, yes. Back then, it was an envelope that you sent.
there was a sat phone, there was a satellite phone that if you got down to some headquarter area, you might be able to use a sat phone. But no, it was letters, we'd send cassettes.
We call that airmail, right?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
The postage was free, so that was probably okay.
Yeah, when they would bring you your mail.
Whenever you
But
got
the
it.
difference between communications and then the best radio that we had to communicate with whatever help we needed or other units was about 25 miles under ideal conditions.
Right.
But you get them in the jungles and the mountains and all that, sometimes it's not even a mile. I would give anything, what I know now, to have a cell phone. It would have been a whole different game.
Plus the batteries never held up.
Yeah.
Call for new batteries, you got dead batteries. But
What were the aspects of your everyday life, except for school perhaps, that you hated to give up and were glad to get back to?
Cody?
I feel like a lot of these questions are tailored more towards these guys. All the units kind of bag on each other, all the branches, but Coast Guard kind of gets it the worst because these guys actually had horrible deployments. They're out there risking their lives every day, and gunfire and bombs and everything else. A deployment for the Coast Guard, my first unit, we would just patrol the Caribbean. So I got to sell the Caribbean for drugs and migrants and pirates. And these guys are out there, in horrible conditions. So it's hard for me to kind of pop in here off and on because these horrible situations. Like, yeah, I got to go to Panama. That was tough. I got to visit Colombia. That was horrible. So
that's okay.
so it's hard for me to
Somebody's
top down
gotta
these
do it, man.
real heartfelt stories and over here selling the Caribbean. So it's a little different for me.
You develop in your mind pretty quick that, hey, this is what I've got to do. And it turns right down to where just survive.
Yeah.
That's right.
Survival is the top of the game.
That's it.
And you figure it out pretty quick. If I do this and I do that, and if I'm stupid and do this. So you become, like for me, it was like you just went to another level. Not in intelligence wise, yeah, maybe for a different thing that you're used to doing, but for survival. you get into another whole level that it's just that. And you know when something's going on, whatever, it's just instant. It's just, I relate it to like an animal's instinct to survive. That's just about what you turn into. You learn to survive and you stick to that until you get out of there.
You still keep in touch with the buddies you made while you were in the military?
I personally do. They're all family. We talk on a regular basis. We try to visit each other every so often.
Yeah,
Huh?
you-
What was it? I have a hard time hearing. I left my hearing aids at home this morning.
Well, I've
So,
got mine on, but
get loud.
gotta loan you one.
Get in touch with any people that you serve with.
26 years after I came back, I got a call from a guy in Pittsburgh, I believe it was. He says, "Hey Morgan," he says, "this is Morgan from Porterville." I go, "Yeah." He said, "I got your name somehow, somebody." He says, "We're having a reunion in Washington, D.C. 26 years from the day I left, we had the first reunion. And there was like 240 people showed up at it. And what it was my company, 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines that I served with. So everybody from day one, the 1st Marine Division was there from the beginning in Vietnam, and they stayed. But anyway, anybody that served was come to this reunion, and there was 240 showed up, and since then we've had 4. So about every 3-4 years we get into it and we all meet someplace. We met in Vegas. In fact, we went to Camp Pendleton for once and had a reunion right there outside the deal, and went to the base, and hey, it was great. But I do stay in contact with them. I still have a complete list. No matter where I go, I can go look them up. They're all across the United States. The closest one to me lives over here in Taft.
Great. What adjustment did the military assist you with when you got out of the service? Let's start with Nick. Did you have debriefing? Did you have assistance? Did you have counselors? Did you have rehab work?
Yeah, there was debriefing and there was counseling and all that, but I still feel like my needs weren't met. So I dealt with it in my own way, probably not the right way, but in my own way. And it took a good 5 years maybe to finally come around.
What could they have done for you?
Honestly, I just don't think they could have done anything. Probably put me in a padded room, I don't know.
Okay, Roland?
There's a lot of resentment still by a lot of Vietnam vets because we were not welcomed at all at home. In fact, we were advised to get out of your uniform and get into your civvies as soon as possible. A lot of us, for the most part, we didn't talk about it. There were a lot of people that I know, and I have close friends that didn't know I had been in the military. This was after pretty much I moved out of Porterville and went on to Cal Poly. And the military didn't do anything for us, and really neither did our society, in my opinion.
Corey?
Yeah, I can say it's gotten better. Like I said, I didn't go through anything these guys did. There's a mandatory, it's called Chaps in the Coast Guard. Mandatory. They didn't allow me to go. I got kind of lost. It wasn't until I got a job here in Maria and Aaron let me go to different veteran events that I realized the benefits that I had. I suffered an injury while I was in, and sometimes it'll act up and it'll go out and I can't walk right. And I didn't realize I had medical insurance until Maria took me to one of the veteran events, and she's like, "Oh, you need to go talk to them." So she drug me over, and I talked to one of the VA reps, and he ran my name. He's like, "Oh yeah, you have full medical coverage for this," and I was able to get help that way. So you can still use some work no matter what branch you're in, but the help's out there if you put the legwork in.
As far as any assistance when I got out, I'd say that was zero. As a matter of fact, there was a situation there for quite a few years where if you said you were a Vietnam veteran, you might not get hired. I know I had a case where that was the reason they actually gave me is, well, you're a Vietnam veteran, we're not hiring Vietnam veterans. Anybody that's been in combat, we're not hiring. And if that would happen today, of course, it wouldn't happen today, but back then, it did happen. So there wasn't any kind of, hey, let me give you some assistance or anything. They literally, like Roland said, you kind of just kicked you out and said, get rid of the uniform as quickly as possible and move on. But it does put you into you survive just like you did when you were overseas. You start looking at things and you try and find a way to survive, and we all did.
Mostly by just coming home, finding yourself a job, and just work and forget it.
Yep.
You don't tell nobody. You like in my case, I'd never socialized with big groups. I stayed away from football games, baseball games, and all that good stuff, because I didn't have the mentality to put up with all the garbage. I didn't want to put up with it. I didn't want to see it. Like I was telling them earlier, it was like 68. I was 68 years old before I ever went into a VA office of any kind. Before that, it was just like disasters. If you get into, when I went to college here, I think finally in the second year or something like that, somebody said something about they'll pay you to go to college. Nobody ever told me that stuff. Nobody ever tells you anything. So I was going to college, whatever, I got out and said, oh, you got this, so-and-so bill where you can buy a home. Okay, I went to do that. They said there's no money available. There's no money available. I bought 2 homes, had 1 built. Finally, the 4th home, which I still own now, I got a Calvet loan. Because somebody told me, Everett, you're a 10-point vet. You should have went to the top of the line to start with. Nobody tells you that stuff. Nobody tell you that stuff. There was just nothing out there to help you with that stuff. Like now, I'm glad, like here in the college, there's a veterans deal here on board, on the campus. And as far as I'm concerned, probably one of the better ones around. But there is somebody there that can give you some information, some contact, whatever. There's different offices around now that you can go to and get some information. But when we got out of the military, it was like, no, there was nothing there. I had a friend of mine that was discharged in Oklahoma, Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And he was in a blast. His skull was fractured. He went, they gave him a physical, discharged him and whatever, and he asked him about something. They said, well, there's nothing we can do for you at this time. You need to just go on home. And he went into, I think it was like 15, 16 years later, he went in. The man was put 100% disabled on the spot, right there. He should have had some help right off the bat, and it wasn't available. So that's where we was at in the Vietnam era.
Thank you. Let's stop for a moment. Is there anything from the audience? Are there questions that the audience would like to ask of any of these veterans? Yes.
What was the name of the gentleman, second from the right? I didn't quite get that. Sorry. I just want to get your name, the second from the right, Commissioner? Yeah.
Greg King, K-I-N-G.
K-I-N-G? All right, thank you.
Do a background check on you.
Yeah. You want that Social Security all the time?
Just last forward.
I have a question. Hearing all the stories about the negative things that you guys went through, and I feel so sorry that you guys did that. But we do have a lot of students here, and we hear that there's shortage in the military. How can you encourage students nowadays to go and serve the military, and they'll probably not have the same experience that you have because of Vietnam and stuff like that, but what would you say to the current students that are here present to encourage them, or maybe discourage them, to serve in the military?
I can speak to that one. These guys, they fought in a different era. A lot of them were forced to go and into these horrible wars, so they fought in a different era. And now that the military, it has changed a lot. Obviously, there's shortcomings, but overall, there's tons of benefits. It's a great thing to do. Like I said before I joined the Coast Guard, I failed college here. I was throwing parties just to have money to buy groceries the next day, really just struggling to stay afloat. And I went to the military and they ironed me out. They gave me good morals. They gave me good respect. They taught me how to fight for myself and really push forward and do better with my life. And now that I'm out, they're paying for my college. They're paying me to go to college. As Everett said, I'll get all the way through my master's degree with no debt, which is pretty amazing if you think about it. And they've paid me the entire time just to go to college. So I didn't have to struggle as much as other students. So there are some bad stories out there, and there were some horrible times, but I do think it's changing for the better. And I do think the military is a great option for anybody, especially a knucklehead like me, to kind of iron you out and get you on the right path. So I really think it's a great thing, and it allows you to really change your life and change your trajectory in life.
Thank you. Now I've got a red hot one for you. At the end of your enlistment, would you have considered re-enlisting? We'll start at this end and work our way through. Nick?
Yes, so I did 6 years was my first contract, and I was offered a sign-on bonus to do an additional 6, which I did. But after my experience over there, I just couldn't go on anymore. So I called it quits after 12 years.
Okay.
My turn?
Yeah. You're
Yeah,
up.
I was offered a re-enlistment bonus just before I rotated back home. I stated, I thought to myself, no, I don't think I want to do that. I want to serve, finish my my time, get out and go back to college and get a degree and do something else. But in kind of speaking to Cody's comment, there were a lot of good times, and I learned a great deal in the military. I was a mechanic, went through a fairly long, good training course. I could have stayed with that, but I elected to go to college rather than go out and work on airplanes. But the military can offer a great deal, but it can also offer some pretty bad times.
At first I didn't think I'd ever want to re-enlist, and here I am 3-4 years later, and it crosses my mind quite often. I wish I had a healthy body to re-enlist, because it was great times. Like I said, there's some great times in it, and I got to sell the Caribbean. We had a $58 million drug bust, got a couple migrants, and it was just some phenomenal memories with some great family, really. And sometimes I do wish I could re-enlist.
For me, no, they did say that I could re-enlist, but would have to change what I was doing before into something other kind of thing other than infantry. And I really didn't want to stay in at that point, because after spending the time in the hospital, I kind of had enough of that. So I moved on. But I want to comment one thing really quick on what the military can give you, and it can give you a sense of understanding yourself, where you end up where your discipline is better, you understand things better, you know how to apply yourself better, and you know how to work through hard times. And if you can work through the hard times, you can get to the good times.
Thank you.
Yeah, for me, it was no choice. Like I said, they took me out. They made me non-combatant for a year, a little over a year, that I could not go back into a combat zone. Okay, my date came for discharge. They come in and they offer you all this good stuff, like the rank of gunnery sergeant and $7,500 tax-free. And when he said tax-free, it was all over with right there, because I knew where I was going. This was in 1969. The war there lasted till what, 75?
75.
If I'd have joined up, at that time was a 6-year enlistment. If I'd have joined up, if I could have survived it, I did 2 more tours in Vietnam. And I couldn't have survived them. So I chose no.
I think we all chose no.
Okay, well, let's go on to the next question then. What was unique about the particular war that you were involved in? Let's start with you, Everett.
What was the question? A little louder.
What was unique about the Vietnam War that you remember?
I think what was unique for me was the people, the troops. because you had certain ways that, you know, I mean, like I said, you didn't socialize with people or whatever, but you learned the guy next to you is your life. And you learn to depend on certain things that they do, whatever, but to me it was unique how much they could come together and remain together no matter what. That was unique. I can't get 4 people on here in the world to agree on anything. Or that will agree or do anything the same way. That group of people at that time, to me, was a unique deal. I mean, I could take 15 or 20 of them and I'd rule California in about 32 minutes. And, you know, that was unique. And I haven't seen it since. I don't know, I went back, like I say, we went back for a reunion at Camp Pendleton. And I'm looking around and I'm going, this discipline is no longer in the Marine Corps. So it's different now too. But at that point in time, this is the most, to me, unique or great, whatever. It's just like he was one big person. And to me, that was very unique.
Thank you. Great.
Yeah, that's the same kind of thing. When you're out in a situation where somebody else is trying to do away with you, the amount of camaraderie between the group is extremely important. My first mission there was me and 3 other people going for reconnaissance, and I'm leading it, and I've been in country 24 hours. So that's pretty unique, I think. I don't think that's the norm, but that was the norm at the time that I was in. I had the training to do that type of mission, so that's where they sent you. And then, you know, you would take over and look at one area, and then the 4 of you would get picked up by a helicopter and taken to another area. And you would do another 1-click or 2-click, 1,000-acre areas, 2,000-meter areas, and search those areas. Looking for contact is what you were looking for. But anyway, it's unique. It's unique is that you're on your own. You're not on your own, but you are on your own. As a group, you are. And that's one thing I took away from it just in the first few hours I was there.
Corey?
A lot of what you guys are in the camaraderie, you know, you have to think when you join the military and you get to your first unit, you don't know anybody, but neither does anybody else. So you're all strangers to each other. You start just being like, oh, you like working out? I like working out, let's hang out. You like to fish? I like to fish, let's hang out. And you make these friendships with complete strangers, and you are each other's family. So I thought that was really unique, and it actually carries out into the real world after the military. All these guys, all the vets, even though, you know, I wasn't the best friend of the Coast Guard, they still accept me. And and old Everett here, first time I met him, he invited me to go hunting at his house. So it's that camaraderie really carries on after the military.
Roland?
So only having one war zone, fortunately, that I was ever visited, I don't know, comparing, impossible to compare. What was unique that I thought was that it got so repetitious night after night. We would fly out to the same areas, shoot up the same piece of jungle, and fly back, and the next day we'd just go out and do it again. It seemed futile. It seemed like there was a ridiculousness to it, and it became evident that it really wasn't a military operation. It was more of a political operation.
Yes.
So I guess I agree with the fellas here. It's when you got a bunch of people coming from all over and then uniting, and you get to know, like Cody said, you get to know them. That's really good, because when I was doing convoy missions in Iraq, and if we were rolling down the road and say one of our trucks got hit by an IED, we knew exactly what to do. Everybody knew exactly what to do. And that, I found, that was unique right there. When everybody's on the same page to do the right thing or what they need to do, I was like, yeah, I'll roll with these guys anytime.
Okay, well, let's have another little hot button. There are now women that are in the military in all branches and doing most everything. Do you think that would have caused a problem when you were in the military? Any volunteers?
I might take the Fifth Amendment on that one.
Yeah, are we all married?
On the deal about, you know, how they get united. Well, the first thing you do is you learn a man's kind of like his mentality, his skills, what he can do for you, whatever. You don't want to know about his family, or if he's got 4 kids or 2 dogs. You don't want to know nothing personal about those people. You just want to know, okay, this is Greg. He does this, and this, and I don't have to worry about it because Greg will do that. But I don't want, if something happened to him, if I knew he had a wife and 4 kids and all that good stuff, it would get into another whole game for you. So you got to know the people for their skills and what they could do and to survive. But you didn't want to know nothing personal about them. So you just maybe know their name, their first name, that's about it. And that's all you wanted to know. And day after day, you meet these guys that come in like, well, in our era, prior to that, if you was in a unit and going into a war zone, you'd go in as a unit. It would be like, if you ever watched the movie Easy Company, whatever that was, Band of Brothers, when they went in as a group, it was a group. And they stayed as a group the whole time they was there, and they stayed for the duration of the war. Well, in the Vietnam era, you was replacements. You did a 13-month tour, so they would fit you into somebody had been there a long time or been there for 32 minutes or whatever. They would just put you in there. So you had all these people coming in, new people, replacements. So again, you just didn't want to get to know them personally because some of them didn't last very long. And you didn't want to know about what was their families and all that stuff back here. So
I want to address the question of women in the military. That was your question, right? Well, there's a place for women in the military for sure. If anybody doesn't think so, doesn't know the military, because there's all kinds of jobs in the military, whether that's going to be in combat or not, or in support. It's still lots of jobs. And, you know, having been drafted, I feel it's fine for the women to be involved in what we do further in the military, because I think that's wonderful. Because it seemed kind of weird when I think back into the 60s and realized women didn't even have to register for the draft. The men had to register for the draft. I don't think that's fair. I think we're all citizens. Let's spread the wealth, so to speak, you know. And, you know, we can use everybody. There's all kinds of jobs in the military, and I believe that's a necessity now.
Yeah, a lot of countries require that.
Yeah.
Any other comment on that?
They're afraid they're going to get
I'll leave it alone.
Okay, well then, let me ask as possibly a final question. Do you think a volunteer army would work?
No.
Well, it has been.
I'll take on to that one, then you guys can give your opinion. I think all volunteer, like right now, I don't think if you went back to where you really had to put boots on the ground and get to it, I don't think our military is half as good as it has been in the past. When it's all volunteer, you lose a lot of the discipline, you lose a lot of the, it's just, I don't think it works that good. You gotta have somebody, when you tell them, hey, this is black, they believe it's black. Or if you gotta jump 14 feet, they'll jump 14 feet. A volunteer person, to me, all volunteers, I don't think it'll actually work. Because you gotta have that discipline, you gotta have that in you to get it done.
I don't see your mask moving, I don't know who's talking. But
Who's talking?
Any other comments on that?
Only I will disagree with Everett. I think the Volunteer Army has been working well, but I think it's because under the volunteer armies, or the volunteer military, that I think you get a higher quality of soldier. Draftees, there were a lot of draftees in my company that could not read, could not write. And that's not going to be the case in today's Army. They've raised the standards quite a bit. And so I think you got a smarter, more capable soldier now than you did back then. But I think that's the overall, the discipline was much, much greater back in the 60s. You know, I mean, the choice of Fort Leavenworth or doing what you were supposed to do that was your option. You either did it or you got court-martialed. Now they send you to sensitivity training. You sit around in a group and talk about it.
That sensitivity training helped me.
Well, I think all volunteer service is something that would work. It has worked so far, but I think the technology is changing everything military-wise too. So you need the people who can really address the technology that's coming out, and it's changing almost daily. It seems like, we go back to, when combat, we didn't have.
High technology was a Zippo cigarette lighter.
Yeah, that's about right. And yet, I lived on a compass, just trying to find out where I'm going to go and how I'm going to get back in sometimes a badly put together map. So today you've got all this technology, but you need good people in a volunteer army, and people that have got a good education and a commitment to it is certainly something that can make a difference.
Yeah, these guys would know more about the draft than a young guy like me would, but the stories I've heard from a lot of you, people running to Canada, people trying to get these exemptions, a lot of them didn't want to go, so I feel like they'd be less disciplined than somebody that's, let's do it, I want to join. And they're in there and they're wanting to do this, they're wanting to make this change. So I really think the volunteer service would create disciplined armies as it has.
Okay, let's ask then, considering what rank you were in when you went into the service, what rank were you when you came out of the service? What awards were you able to achieve during your time there? Medals, citations, whatever. Can we answer that?
So when I started, I was E nothing, big fat zero. But when I joined, I was having fun. I went through the whole training and stuff, but I was also a bad boy. So I didn't get promoted right away because of my choices. But as time went on, and I got sent to Iraq, and I ended up doing another 6 years on top of the 6 that I did. I started going, hey, wait a minute, I need to do something here. So I started going to school. They sent me to school, and I got promoted quickly, and I ended up going to E5 sergeant. And I wanted to go up higher, but my time ran out, and I stood at E5. And as far as awards go, I got a combat badge and a lot of other awards that I can't even tell you. I just got them all boxed up in storage. But they said I deserved them.
Well, as an inductee, you are, like Nick says, you're an E nothing. When I got out, I was an E5, which is an NCO. The Army, I was not a hard striper, meaning I was not a sergeant, I was a specialist 5th class because of the technical nature of my MOS, my specialty. As far as the awards, there's a few of them, but they're just ribbons.
Yeah, I can second what they've been saying. E0 going in. I should have ranked up a little better than I did. I suffered a shoulder problem that they wouldn't take care of, and I really couldn't move my arm, and finally after 3 years they gave me surgery and I was able to advance after that. And I was a maritime enforcement specialist. I was 3rd class, which is an E4. My job was to train my local units in hand-to-hand techniques, laws we can enforce, train them into range, things of that sort. And awards, I couldn't tell you.
I ended up as an E6 when I got out of the military itself. The awards are, they got Purple Heart and things like that, but it's not about the awards really. I mean, it's about the time you were there, and whether you were, or this time you were in the military, whether or not you were successful in that, and that I feel like I was.
I ended up an E5 sergeant. I got that within about 15 months in the Marine Corps. It usually takes the Marine, he has to ship over for that next 6 years just to get past the E4 level. But in a combat zone, and it was really easy to get your rank. All you had to do was do what you're supposed to do. Like when I started out, I ran squads, platoons. I ended up with a Sparrowhawk squad, which was one of those, you go help somebody when they get in a lot of trouble. So I got my rank pretty fast. In fact, it's kind of fun. When I come back through Okinawa, I met one of my drill instructors, and I was the same rank as him. I told him, get out of my face.
He hasn't changed.
Get out of my face,
But as
cockroach.
far as rewards and stuff like that, you get the regular stuff, you know, they give it to you, and they give you something that, you know, well, I've seen 14 guys today do stuff that deserved a whole bunch more than that.
It's true.
And then, but there's certain people that they give this to, but then, I mean, if you look around, they talk about heroes. Well, if you look, there's heroes all over the place. They're all heroes. They should all get some type of medal if they want it, which me, I never cared nothing about them. They're just, like he says, they're in a box somewhere, and that's it.
Thank you, Everett. Well, any last questions from our audience? Yes.
Got real questions? I'm writing an article, by the way, that's why I asked her name. So just during the moments of just routine, probably, I'm guessing it kind of alternated between boredom and just intensity of adrenal fatigue, constant adrenaline wearing you out. How did you keep your morale up? Like, if you could just share just any little moments or strategies and memories you had where you did little things to help you kind of stay sane and keep your morale up.
I'm not sure I'm saying now, so. So I'd have to get into that particular first. Well, I know that because what I had is going out into the field, like I said, on reconnaissance and stuff, and also going out on ambush pretty much every night. The 4 members would do the same kind of thing. And it was really just talking amongst the other people that was in your group, whether it's, you know, sharing the stress more than anything else, you know, with the understanding is it's us as a small group as we were protecting each other. And, you know, it's not a whole lot more to it than that. You know, you really can't fall back on much else other than yourself.
As in aviation, we had it made compared to the grunts in the field. We flew back generally every night to a safe place. But then there were some issues with that. You know, the airfield, the gates closed at dark. They did not open until light, till the next morning. And no one came in, no one came out. So it wasn't like you could run into town and drop a few beers and have a joke, play some darts. The generator might be working. Most of the time it was off during the night. And so, you know, it was pretty limited, to be honestly. It was very limited. If we were lucky, once in a while we'd get a shipment of rusty beer cans. We'd have some Carling Black Label, and I'd never even heard of that beer until I got with it. But it was certainly a problem and it always is in the military.
I think Jim has some final information for you.
Okay, any further questions before we end this? Are we good? All right, well, thank you so much. This was wonderful. Really.